We're pleased to be here today to ask Tim McAfee, a candidate for sheriff, a question about a serious issue involving our region. Crystal methamphetamine is everywhere in our community. What are your plans to address this issue, and what is your position on how to respond to persons who have become addicted to this dangerous drug?
I appreciate that question. In fact, I get asked a form of that question almost on a daily basis, either because someone has a family member that's addicted, or they are a specific-minded person that's interested in knowing what the future holds for our county. I'd like to explain a little bit about why this particular drug has become so prevalent in our community and why it has become a cancer that we've got to get rid of. Crystal methamphetamine has come onto the scene in a way that most of us that were involved in law enforcement did not anticipate would have such a devastating effect. One of the problems that is presented is that it particularly targets areas that are economically depressed. Let me give you an example of sort of a typical person, if there is such a thing, but this is a common theme that we see all the time with crystal meth. Imagine a family that the husband and the mother both worked. The husband may have had a job working in the coal mining industry. He would have provided for a family in a very substantial way. They both had it would have been a two-income family, but the husband, because of his job in the coal mining industry, would have been providing substantially providing a financial livelihood for the family. They would have had a very good existence. They would have spent vacations together, and that all sort of came to an end several years ago. And what we've seen is that that individual, who had been a productive member of society, had provided for his family, may have coached Little League, would have been involved in community events. He's unemployed. All his family is from the area, and we know how much family means to people in Southwest Virginia. So he decides to stay, as well as his family. They're going to stick it out, and so for a long time he's just on unemployment. That unemployment eventually ends. Sort of the next step is trying to find a job, any kind of job. He's not able to find a job making $75,000 a year, as he had been accustomed to in the coal mining industry. He is sort of forced to look for jobs that are minimum wage. And after years of having no employment or underemployment, he's no longer to provide for his family. He becomes significantly depressed. And after years of significant depression without having any employment, all those things that were enjoyable to that family is no longer there. Unfortunately, that kind of person has commonly sought relief with recreational drugs. Usually it would have begun with some form of opiate, maybe Lortabs or Percocets. And after a period of time of that, crystal meth comes along. Crystal meth is less expensive than the Lortabs, and it produces a high that is unlike anything we've ever seen before. For $10 or $20, someone can obtain crystal methamphetamine and experience this euphoria over a period of hours and hours and hours, and it becomes instantly addictive. And that individual then goes on a period of time where he will eventually get in trouble. He may have lost his license and as a result of traffic infractions, or he may have gotten caught with just possessing small quantities of methamphetamine or maybe drug paraphernalia that would indicate his drug usage. And that individual eventually will go to jail for a period of time, maybe 10 days here and 30 days, maybe even as much as 6 months to 12 months, because once they get caught with crystal methamphetamine, they'll be on some form of probation. They're unable to get through this addiction process without significant help. And that person will eventually, after a long period of addiction, will decide that in order to satisfy this addiction that he can't stop, he will become a small-time, if you will, dealer of crystal meth. And those are the people that are currently getting prosecuted for the most part. Not entirely, but they are a significant part of what is being investigated, because the community recognizes now that, you know, if you say, John, if I give this name, this individual to be Johnny, it becomes common knowledge in the community that Johnny's become involved in selling meth. So lots of complaints, law enforcement responds to those complaints, and now Johnny gets prosecuted for, now he's sold small quantities of crystal meth. And now he's looking at significant penitentiary time. And during that entire process of being addicted to either opiates and crystal methamphetamine, we've done nothing significantly to help him get through this addiction process, or this addiction, and have a future for him on the other end of that. So I'm very interested, if I'm elected sheriff, is trying to persuade the multiple parties that are needed to address that very kind of individual that there's so many of out there in our region. And it's going to take people at the prosecutor's office, judicial branch, legislative branch, various community leaders, and various community resources to develop a protocol that's going to assist those that become addicted to crystal methamphetamine. Currently, there is no recognized protocols, and we live in the middle of this crystal methamphetamine epidemic. We are the perfect place to develop the protocols that are needed to bring employment back to our region, bring stability back to these families that have suffered through this process I've just described. Now, the other part of the question is what I plan to do to address those that are really responsible for bringing crystal methamphetamine into our region. I was asked a question yesterday where I alluded to my experience in dealing with a drug cartel that was centered in South Florida. That same level of skill set and that same level of energy and leadership is needed with the crystal methamphetamine epidemic. Currently, the current drug intel tells us that the Mexican drug cartels have, if you will, a base of operations for the southeast, and it's in Atlanta. Predominantly, almost all of the crystal methamphetamine that is making its way into Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky, and West Virginia is coming from Atlanta. We've got to be willing to use that same skill set that we employed in the 1980s and go after those sources of methamphetamine that reside in Atlanta. They're part of a significant drug conspiracy. They're making millions of dollars, and they're killing our people. They're killing our towns, our cities, our counties, our region. And so we've got to be part of the solution in attacking those individuals from Atlanta that are actually doing this. I'm not suggesting that Atlanta is the only place that this is occurring from, but it is one of the most significant sources of our crystal methamphetamine. And I'm the only candidate that has the ability and the knowledge and the experience to know how to do that. I appreciate that question. Thank you.
Thank you.